Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to day number 3 of the Goldmoney Asian Rapid. We've got 16 players in the preliminary stage, and after today, we will have 8 remaining. I'm going to take you through some of the best games of the day, but I'm really going to focus on the last few rounds because that is when all of the players shifted around in the standings and the playoffs became crystal clear. Now, timestamps in the video player, you all know the drill. Friendly reminder, this is what the standings look like at the end of 2 days. Aronian, Dingley-Ren up top. Okay, no question about it. And now Wesley, So, Artemiev, Giri, Carlsen, what's going to happen with them? Is Arjun Erigaisi going to maintain his 7th place spot? Will Duda catch him? Will Svidler make a run? Will Firouzja make a run? Dubov, etc., etc. Let's go. First game of the day is Aronian Firouzja. Firouzja looking to get the day. This is round 11, so he sits down, he's ready to play. We have e4, e5. Knight c3, knight f6, and again, Firouzja just forgetting his GothamChess preparation, doesn't play the Vienna Gambit, instead he plays bishop c4, and here we actually have something called the Frankenstein-Dracula variation with knight takes e4. And the point is that if white takes back, we have d5, and chess gets played. But here queen h5 is a move, and queen h5 leads to a position where after knight d6, you can actually take on e5 and, you know, no one's getting mated. Of course, if knight c3, there is just queen f7 mate. So knight d6 has to protect against that. We have bishop to b3, bishop to e7, queen takes e5, and castles. And this position is completely balanced, but it's interesting that Levon is going for the throat. I mean, you know, if he wanted to play just normal chess, he would have played some symmetrical bishop c5 or knight c6, but no, he's actually trying to play something very interesting and aggressive. d4 from Firouzja, knight c6 kicks the queen away, and now knight a5 immediately goes for the bishop. Now here, Alireza should really play knight f3 and probably try to castle his king. Instead, he plays bishop d5. Bishop d5 is a very provocative move, and this is an extremely provocative response. Basically just getting the knight out of the middle, bishop is going to come and hit the queen, the knight is going to come and hit the bishop, and also you will play c6 and d5 and b5 and b4 and bc and cb and ba. Right, so bishop f3, bishop b4, pinning the knight to the king, and Alireza now plays another very interesting move. He plays the move d5, and after d5, the queen attacks the bishop. So, of course, Aronian does not blunder, doubling Alireza's structure, b6, inviting the move d6, which would then attack the rook, and actually, according to the computer, you don't even need to deal with that. You can just play bishop a6, sacrificing the rook completely, because this light-squared counterattack is just simply too powerful for the white position, which is not developed at all. Now, that did not happen. Instead, we got knight to e2, bishop a6, castles, queen out, and again, Aronian very confidently offering Alireza an exchange of pieces because this pawn structure does not impress anybody. Alireza chooses not to trade queens and rotates it over that way. Now the knight comes back, and this pawn is given away. Why would Aronian allow the queen to infiltrate, also losing a pawn? Well, all he has to do is play rook e8. The thing is, he's now got counterattacking chances with this very powerful bishop that he has in the corner over there on e6, a6. And if you play bishop to e3, which disconnects the bishop from targeting the knight, then this becomes a problem. You know, you're not going to win the knight behind the bishop, but you're definitely going to put pressure on this bishop. Clearly, Alireza thought he had something going for him here, but he must have realized that all of a sudden his queen is hit and the bishop is hit. He has no time to stick around over there. Because I play knight f3, gf3, and by the way, you can't take my queen. It's check. Not to mention, isn't the queen trapped? Yeah. I mean, you can take on e5, but no. I mean, you're going to lose e2. Very bad position. Oh, wait, no. You're not going to lose e2. Bishop b5. Oh, the queen actually is trapped. Ouch. Well, I'm glad I'm not playing this game. Queen h3, knight f3, gf3, queen g5. Now, Aronian in this position is still down a pawn, for the record. He's still down a pawn. He has 6 pawns, Alireza has 7, except Alireza has 2 sets of isolated pawns, 2 sets of isolated A and H pawns, so doubled isolated. I mean, this is... I know they're technically not isolated, but they might as well be isolated. This knight is just a target, and also he's straight up just going to lose material, right? I mean, you can take this with either piece. Except for the fact that you can't, because if you play bishop here, I go here, and all of a sudden it's white creating counterplay on black by virtue of the g-file. So Aronian still has to be careful. So what does Aronian do? He takes on d5. Now he's won back his pawn, queen coming to f3. It's defended, but I mean, it's got pressure and eyes there, and the knight is still hanging. What's funny is that this is actually a bad move. The best move here for black was to disconnect the bishop from seeing g7, enabling the fact that after rook to g1, you would be able to play this move, and this is no longer a problem. The problem with the way Levon did it is that we got the same exact position, and so it's okay. Except for one problem. It's not okay. It's not okay at all. Rook takes g7. King g7. Rook g1. Okay. King h8. Knight to f4. Hits the queen and knight g6. And white is better. I mean, white is actually creating some sort of attack. Rook takes g7 is the computer-suggested move, sacrificing a rook for 2 checks. And then ultimately that leads to just a very good position for white. Yeah, if you begin with this after rook g1, queen d5 would not be played, but bishop c8, this counter-attacking on the queen. Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody saw that. Yeah, shut up, computer. So we got this position. Alireza could have played rook takes g7. But he played knight to f4 first, and that allows queen f5. And now none of this works, because if you go for this position, I have this, which I didn't have a move ago, because my queen was not here. It had to guard h7. Otherwise, queen h7's mate in 1. But in this case, I can protect. So the slightest of differences, Alireza continues to try to create some sort of attack, but everything is well protected. And Levon plays queen takes c2, blundering back all of the advantage to Alireza with the move knight to h5. Again, here, bishop b7 is apparently the way to go, pressuring this pawn. I don't understand this move at all. I mean, it's just a slight bishop move, but computer understands it. After this, it's actually still Alireza who is attacking Aronian to the death. Knight to f5, counterattacking the queen, but knight takes f6. Rook takes f6, rook takes g7, knight takes g7, queen takes f6, because if rook to g1 with some threat, you just lose your queen. So that's terrible. Don't do that. And if knight g7, queen f6, which is what happens in the game, well, of course, queen g6, rook g... Wait a minute. This is a problem for black, because if takes... Who guards this? Well, it turns out that Levon is smarter than all of us, including the computer. All the way back here, queen c2 does not give back the advantage at all. Actually, doesn't give back the advantage at all. What am I talking about? Knight h5, knight f5. Well, certainly, I mean, this looks like you're breaking through. Alireza did everything right. Rook g1. Yeah, except kaboom. Queen takes g1. And Alireza resigned. He resigned because if he took, only move, still no mate, bishop f1, and now you have 2 choices. Back here and get checkmated, the bishop comes out to h3 and it's mate, or here, and that same knight that you were trying to take to deliver a mate, knight to h5. And Aronian is a genius. He beats Alireza with black in 30 moves, and Alireza has now gone down to like 11th, 12th place. His chances of winning any qualification spot are basically none, and Aronian continues to dominate. He is up top. Which takes me to my second game of the day. This game is actually a bit of a meme game between Adhiban Giri and Anish Giri. Anish Giri has a safe spot for qualification. However, it is also Anish Giri's birthday at the time of playing this game, and Adhiban has a course out on b3. So he promised us that he would play b3 against Anish Giri. And it's kind of crazy that you would know that someone's going to play an opening against you weeks in advance. And, well, let's see what happens. Bishop f5, bishop b2, and Anish plays a reverse London. So he plays a London setup with h6 so that his bishop will never be a target. Then he proceeds to instigate on Adhiban's setup with moves like a5. You'll notice that he does very standard, normal stuff, getting the bishop out of the center when it gets hit with this pawn. And he plays a5 to try to instigate with a4. Adhiban completely allows that instigation, but then tries to close the position up with b4, to which Anish Giri instigates once again with the move c5. And should this trade occur, this is just a target forever. So this is just very bad for white. Knight b3 obviously is not possible because a takes b3. And, you know, this is Nothing good will come out of this, so Adhiban confidently pushes his pawn all the way to b5, and he would really like to support it with c4, so Anish Giri himself plays the move c4. And see, here's the problem. If you take on c4, which by the way, I don't think you have anything better, now you've lost stability in the center, so Anish Giri has emerged from the opening just very confidently in a good position. These pawns are slightly overextended, they can be picked off, you can blockade them, you can bring your pieces out in some capacity and try to win them. Bishop will come to f6, trading off white's powerful dark squared bishop. Everything is looking pretty good here for white. But, sorry, for black, not for white. I'm making a lot of mistakes in this recap. I think it's because I'm trying to go fast. Let me take a sip of water and calm down. Okay, so Adhiban plays rook to d1. Now we have bishop f6 trying to trade off the dark squared bishops, which is everything that I said would happen. If white were to just take on f6 in this case, then after knight ef6, sorry, I made a mistake immediately after, well, knight df6, knight ef6 are actually both fine, but I said the wrong letter. Knight ef6 holds everything together, knight c3 is coming, queen e7 will always hit this weak pawn on a3, so instead of indulging in those exchanges, Adhiban takes on e4, bishop b2, takes on d5, and wins himself a pawn. Now he has 6 pawns, and Anish Giri has 5. However, Anish Giri has plenty of compensation, because this pawn, once again, will not go anywhere. But now we have knight fd2, and once this pawn is won, it is Adhiban creating some pressure and tricks on the black position. Bishop to b4, c3 attacks the bishop goes back, and now a very tricky move, b6. And b6, again, we saw this last game, rook hits bishop, knight hits bishop, okay. What do you do about that? If you take on b6, then I just take the bishop, just the free bishop. If you take on b6 like this, then I take the knight. And then I take this and you're still forked. So that's bad. So Anish plays f5, using the concept of danger levels. However, there's an even cooler move here by white. Adhiban plays knight f6, which is a cool move. That can be taken 4 different ways. But there is also rook d7, queen d7, and knight c5, after which he's got tremendous pressure on the black position. But he plays knight to f6, queen f6, rook d7, and he picks up the pawn on b7, and it's not so clear. I mean, this b pawn has made it all the way through. Long live the b3 pawn. Rook b8, knight a5, queen a5. I mean, I'm telling you, folks, long live the b pawn. That b pawn has survived the apocalypse, and queen g7 is just checkmate. So Anish has to play rook g8. If you take this, you will lose your queen, so please don't do that. We have rook c1, intending to triple up the pressure on the g7 pawn. Anish takes on b6. He takes on b6, that's great. But now we can take the rook, because now we've been unpinned. And rook c7, f4, and the game is over. I mean, there is just simply no defense. Queen b1 check, and another check. King goes out. You can give another check on this square. But a very flashy move to end the game. Queen f5. And now not taking, which would result in a loss, because check and you lose the rook. No. g4. And if you take my queen, you now stop guarding your bishop on the diagonal, and it's mate. And after the move g4, it was birthday boy Anish Giri resigning versus Adhiban Bhaskaran in an explosive game. Truly a wild game. And, well, I mean, Adhiban Bhaskaran completes the quest. He completes the prophecy by playing the move b3 of his new chessable course against the man who also is an established chessable author, and he wins. And what more can you ask for? Don't ever let your memes just be dreams. Try to turn your memes into reality. And now, folks, allow me to preface the final 2 games of the day, okay? Little bit of an introduction. So, after that devastating loss to Firouzja Aronian, Alireza Firouzja went on to defeat Hou Yifan in a 124-move game. Levy, why didn't you show us that game? Nobody wants to watch 124 moves of chess. Yes, I do. Okay, well, I don't, so I'm sorry. But Alireza went on to win a couple of games in a row. Now, this is the final round. Going into this round, Arjun Erigaisi is still in the running. Alireza Firouzja is still in the running. Jan Krzysztof Duda is still in the running. Vidit Gujarati is still in the running. Gukesh is still in the running. A lot of people can still qualify for the 8th and 7th place spots. About 6 or 7 guys. Eddie Geisy draws Giri very fast. They quick draw, Giri makes it, Carlsen makes it. And by the way, Carlsen is on the thumbnail because, you know, he's the king. He's the GOAT. He's waving goodbye to all the other people who don't make it into the top 8. But Alireza Firouzja in the penultimate round defeated Svidler. So Firouzja now has to beat Saleh. So here we go. d4 knight f6. And we have a symmetrical development. Now, of course, if you're playing this position with black, the best move is to play mirror chess. I mean, if you play copycat at the top level, it still works up to a point. But Alireza needs to win, so he plays King's Indian Defense. Saleh plays c4. We have Fianchetto, King's Indian Defense. We have knight to e4. This is a very confrontational move. I mean, this is literally just red towel in front of the bull. You can play a million things here with black. c6, c5, a6, knight d7, knight a6, probably. I mean, I don't know. I don't play these positions. But, I mean, this is so provocative. It's like, what are you going to do about my knight? Now, I would imagine the best move is something like queen c2, making black play f5, and Alireza's searching for imbalance. Well, immediately, so listen, Saleh is not in the running to make it to the top 8, so he is just out to have some fun and play some interesting chess. Knight c6, e4, Alireza drops the knight to a5, targeting the doubled pawn immediately. And we have, listen, folks, we got 2 grandmasters playing a game of chess. The clouds open up. h4. Now, Saleh doesn't have to play like this. Saleh could have tried to be like, well, I'm going to play very boring chess and make Alireza take all the risk. But I'm sure he was familiar with the standings. And listen, Saleh wants a game of chess at the end of the day. He's in this to play some interesting chess. So c5, h5. If Alireza is going to beat me, let's have some fun. Let's hope for the best. cd4, cd4, bishop g4. This is a very delicate center. It is being targeted by all sorts of pieces. The rook is about to come to c8 to target it, queen to b6, or queen to c7, or even queen to d7. And this is interesting. You know, this pawn on h6. It's very AlphaZero style. Same side castling, not allowing the bishop or the king any sort of forward mobility. And now queen to d3 stabilizes the center somewhat, but here comes rook c8. Rook b1 moves the bishop out of the pin, targets this, so Alireza takes and plays b6 so that he never has to worry about this, and now something is threatening to take here. The best move here for white is what Saleh plays, to develop the bishop, and after knight c4, actually move the bishop again. You might ask, why? Why? That's so stupid. Why didn't he just go here in the first place? Well, because rook c4 would have happened, and this is a problem. This is a problem. You cannot have this. And the difference is that if you play rook takes c4 in this position, well, the center is just stable. So this doesn't make any sense. And actually, white can create all sorts of counterplay. Just being down a pawn doesn't mean anything. White is down a b pawn. Do you feel the presence of being down a b pawn? No. Do you feel the presence of all your pieces doing a group hug in the nuclear shelter? Yes. You do feel the presence of white's activity here. Much more than you feel, oh, I'm up a b pawn, wee-hee! I don't know why that's Firouzja's up a pawn voice, but... So we have knight c4, and the difference here is that the knight is actually quite active, but the rook is not pressuring the center. Rook c1, knight a5, and probably you have to continue to stay patient with moves like bishop e2, with something like bishop back to e3, or queen moving somewhere to try to put a bishop on b5. Instead of that, Saleh plays d5. The fundamental problem with the move d5 is that by committing 2 pawns to light squares, you've reactivated the entire dark squared sniper for your opponent. When's the last time you saw a bishop see the entire board, by the way? Huh? And c5. And the only way to get to c5 with the horse is to go to b7, and that is a very nice move that is known as a reroute. That knight does find its way to c5, and now Alireza Firouzja is confidently up a pawn. He is not in any danger whatsoever, and he needs to find a way to win this position. Saleh, unfortunately, is not in a state of mind where he's going to go, well, I'm down a pawn, so now I've got to stubbornly defend this position. No, he plays a4. A4 looks like it straight up hangs a pawn, but it doesn't, because if you were to take it, there is some way for me to infiltrate on the open files. So Alireza trades off Saleh's most active piece, which is what? Very good. The bishop on g5. Of course, you cannot do this, because now I've solved my problem. I don't have a bad bishop anymore. This is just stupid. I don't really, I mean, I'll move my rook and my king will be happy over here. This knight is 46.5 times better than the bishop on f3, and black will go on to win. So Saleh backs up. We have knight a4, bishop g4, but now Alireza's up 2 pawns, and being up 2 pawns is better than being up 1 pawn because you're up 2 pawns and you're not up 1 pawn, and that's better because 2 is better than 1 more often than not in chess. Good? We on the same page? Okay, fantastic. Bishop e2, queen e8, and queen b8. Now, it's still a difficult position because, you know, being up a b and an a pawn is not so simple. I mean, they're great, but are they worth anything? Can you actually push them forward? It's like having a car in your garage with no engine. I don't think people are going to pay that much money for a Lamborghini frame. I wouldn't know. I don't have a car. I live in New York City. I don't really want to drive anywhere. So for me, it's all bicycles. Queen b7, g4, queen d7. Yo, is he gonna ever move his pawns, or so he's gonna move this pawn, but nope, still no movement. Okay, let's put it this way: if Alireza wins this game without moving his b or his a pawns, that would be incredibly impressive. And by the way, I don't understand why Saleh didn't take this pawn, because queen e7 is met with bishop takes c5. So I suppose he didn't like something here. I don't know. Maybe Saleh really wanted Firouzja to qualify, so he continued to to give him. I don't know. I'm joking, but Saleh could have taken on c6 a little bit earlier. Bishop e3, queen e5, queen f3, and yeah, I mean, Ali is swarming. He's gonna win both of these pawns. He still has not moved his b or a pawns at all. Bishop f4. Let's also not forget that at this point the players have like no time. Alireza, please move one of your queenside pawns. Alireza, please do. Oh, okay. He's gonna do it without moving his pawns at all. Yep, he reactivates all his pieces, and now by being up a ton of pawns, he simplifies, and Alireza Firouzja is up 4 pawns in an endgame, and he's actually, the madman is gonna do it. He's gonna do it. Rook g6. This is almost stalemate, except it's not. And Alireza Firouzja does in fact win the game without ever moving his b and a pawns. Ever. But Alireza wins. Alireza finishes the day with 3.5 out of 4. Storming back from 11th and 12th place and now he's tied. He's in 8th place. Which takes me to my final game of the day, folks. Off in the distance somewhere, Magnus Carlsen has defeated Vidit Gujarati. Vidit had to beat Magnus with black. That's not an easy task for anybody. This was an absolutely insane game. I hope you're ready, because this game is going to blow your mind. So, Duda, 7 out of 14. Gukesh, 6.5 out of 14. The winner of this game has a chance of qualifying. However, if Duda wins, he probably qualifies, whereas Gukesh is still looking around at some of the other boards, and even if Gukesh wins, 7.5 might not be enough. Usually 8 out of 15 is the magic number, but here we go. So, you gotta win with black. What do you play against this? Well, of course, you play the Taraj defense. Super imbalanced. Generally considered slightly better for white, but there are chances, obviously, for black. We have knight f6, and now Gukesh shuts down the center of the board. So normally in these positions, you know, you get something that looks like an isolated pawn position, and okay, we play strategic chess. Actually, the bishop doesn't even go to g5 sometimes. You play like b3, and very solid, you know, Russian school of chess, but not in this game. In this game, one guy has to win, so we have tactical explosions from the get-go. Duda blunders a bishop. Horrible blunder from Duda, just straight up hanging a bishop on move 9. However, he is lucky to have the central fork of the bishop and the knight. I am joking, this is clearly preparation of some sort. So here's the problem. If you go to save your bishop like this, then after it takes, white has emerged with an extra pawn and just a clearly dominant position. So, Gukesh plays bishop takes d5, now after which there is a bit of an overloaded situation, so we have bishop f6. If you take with the pawn, maintaining the defense of this, well, your d5 bishop and queen are on the same line. I go here, I take your bishop, you lose the game. So we actually do have queen f6, knight takes d5. And if you were to play queen takes b2 in this position, I would very simply castle and ask you, what are you gonna do about everything? Queen c4, rook b1, rook b7, knight c7, knight d4 to, it's over. It's like plus 3.5 already. So Gukesh thinks for a while here and plays bishop to b4 check, which on the surface just straight up looks like it hangs a bishop. And it does. And knight takes b4 is the best move. But that's not the end of the story. It's so much not the end of the story that in this position, Duda went from 15 minutes to like 6. He spent 9 out of 15 minutes of his time. For those of you that are mathematically challenged, that's 60%, right? 9 out of 15 is 3/5, 60%, right? Yes. I'm also mathematically challenged. I got a statistics degree. Okay, it's not a I'm not good at arithmetic. I'm good at, you know, p-value and confidence intervals. I can say with 95% confidence that 9 out of 15 is 60%. Just gonna say that right now. It's kind of hard to do math on the fly when I make chess recaps. But he plays knight takes b4, and here's the problem. Queen takes b2. Now you got a problem, because your rook is hanging and your knight is hanging. If you castle, I go here, you have no advantage anymore. But you can go here. And now your rook is protected by your knight, which is protected by your queen. And if I castle, then the game is over. I mean, it's just simply over. So Gukesh has to act now. So what does he do? Gives a check. The best move here is either to move your king or to block. And the thing is, if you move your king or you block with the knight, your king is not going to be able to safely castle. Duda chooses this. Gukesh, of course, plays oh. Active rook. Now, the position is plus 3.2 in this position, but that doesn't actually mean anything, because you have to be a human being to win this, and it's not so simple to do. Duda plays g3, and immediately blunders. Immediately blunders. Like, immediately. It's so hard to see why, but immediately. The best move was to bring your rook, which looks like it does nothing, because you can't actually move your knight. But for example, let's say black just lazily brings a rook to the center, going to a3. And now you glue all these pieces together, and of course black cannot trade queens because black is down material. Then knight to d4, game is over. You've coordinated all your pieces perfectly. He plays g3, and that move is a blunder because this is destabilized, and it has nothing to do with the queen, it has to do with rook to d5. Uh-oh. You were too slow with queen a3, and now your queen is about to get trapped, and your knight is about to get targeted. This is very bad. Gukesh is winning. Knight c d4. Knight takes d4. By the way, he could have taken, but then this comes with tempo on the queen, and then I'm going to take, and it's bad news. So he actually has to take here first. Knight takes d4, and now queen a1. Look, folks, one guy now has 2 rooks, and the other guy has 1 rook. Now, as I told you a couple of games ago, 2 is better than 1. Usually, 2 rooks is better than 1. However, game is not over. And this game had a lot of twists and turns. There is still some pressure over here. Knight to b5 is coming. The good thing for white is now this king is completely safe of checks. So rook to a5, the queen backs up to safety. Queen to d3, looking for a queen trade. The problem with desperately looking for a queen trade in this position is that you are negating the development of your rook, and you need to bring your rook. You are up a rook. Use it. Use it. Still not simple, because one guy's going to give you a check. Of course, if you play this move, you get hit with knight c6, which is a triple fork. The rare triple fork by virtue of the pin. So if you got checked on g4, you would have probably had to block with the rook, and that's also not very pleasant. Gukesh is going for a queen trade and still allows this infiltration, and now queen b7 is a problem. We have queen e4, knight blocks, and the rook comes finally, but now rook to b4. Rook to c5, seemingly defending everything. Queen c3 backing up. Rook c7, and now Gukesh is like really making sure he's defending everything. It's -5. Gukesh is completely winning. Rook to b5. a6, okay. Rook to e5. Now we are definitely going to get a trade of queens, or else the pawn is going to march. I mean, Gukesh is totally winning. Totally. So the only way to create counterplay in a totally lost position like this is to either bribe your opponent, which is not possible, or play moves like knight d4 with a long-term threat of playing moves like knight to e6, knight to f5, knight to e7, rook to c5, creating threats on the enemy king. Now Gukesh plays c2. I mean, the man is a move away from making a second queen. It is all over. Except it's not. The best move in this position was preventing rook c5. He had to go here. If Gukesh had stayed patient for one move, and just stopped rook c5, then he could have maybe given a check, infiltrated with this rook, gotten rid of the knight, and won the game. But one pawn push, hasty pawn push, and now rook c5 is on the board, and it's far from clear again. Because if you take, then I take with queen c5, king b8, and knight c6. Queen check, and anywhere you move, it's a draw. I get you in a box. Down a rook, down a pawn that's about to become a second queen. Knight c6. So queen e4 back, king h3, and now he does this, and now there is no knight c6, but knight takes c2. And what is the most natural move in this position, folks? Queen, queen, knight. Of course you play rook c8, right? No! Because now there's check, and the knight gets out. And I don't know if Gukesh missed that or if he just thought he was still winning there, but the best move is to go here. And now it's over. The knight can come to d4, but rook f2, and these two will 100% hunt down this king. But Gukesh plays rook to c8, allowing a check and a centralization, and he continues to try to attack the king. But Duda is super resourceful, creating threats on the rook, creating threats on the king, creating just a stabilizing factor with knight to f4, and even though a check can be given, the king is completely safe. Now, Gukesh can completely play the move queen e4 in this position and probably make a draw, but he doesn't know that. I mean, he's still trying to win this game, and win this game he can. h3, queen d1 is mate. So knight to f4 prevents the h3, but h3 is still the best move because you can create some threats on the h-file. But we have takes, and the king now proceeds to run away to the center and still on the verge of getting mated. Queen c2. What the heck is going on? This king is never getting mated, and there are 3 passed pawns to protect it. So now we have king to b8 trying to again get the rook to the c-file. He does, queen d3. But Duda says, hey, I'm going to bring my queen and my knight together as long as my king is safe among my pawns. And it is. My king is completely safe. I'm constantly threatening checks and ways of winning your rook. Fork to your king. f4. f5. Centralizing and bringing my other pawn. Everything is protected. Queen is covering. Knight is covering the only check. What is going on? Gukesh picks up the a-pawn. f6. Rook c4. Queen e6. A professional move. Queen e6 is a great move. He also could have played f7. But queen e6, the point of this move is that when this happens, you can give a couple of checks to gain time on the clock. And then you can push your pawn and it's over. Nobody is equipped to stop you. If rook to g4, king h5, no more checks. Rook is paralyzed. Queen cannot get to the back rank. So we have this move to stop promotion. Check, knight to f6. Hits the rook. Rook to e3. Again, protected. That's everything that Duda needs to do. Now we push our second pawn. Now we bring our queen back to protect. Queen is in a little triangle protecting everything. Rook to e5 and the king marches forward. King marches forward again. And the pawn marches forward, and the pawn marches forward, and everybody together safeguards the king. Little armada of pieces around the king to g6, g7, king slides back to h6 to make room and unpin himself, queen d8, and now the knight comes in, escorting the final pawns, and the queen finally gives a check, very important check to trade, and here Gukesh resigned. A 77 move bloodbath, the final game of the day. And that, folks, leads us to our final standings. This is from Chess Results. So I took this directly from the Chess Results website. It is a very ugly website. I mean, most chess websites are not very pretty, like the US Chess Federation. But this is what it looks like. Now, Aronian first place, Artemyev in second with 10 points. And folks, you're going to say, you didn't show a lot of his games. I didn't. I will, I promise, in the playoffs. Artemyev is extremely strong, but he doesn't have a style very conducive. Like, he doesn't win games in like 30 moves. I mean, he wins like grinding end games. He got a very solid style, but I promise I will honor him more. Because he just got second place. Like, we haven't seen this guy at all. He gets second place. Dingley Ren, there he is. Magnus Carlsen waves goodbye to the other players. And by the way it's listed here is the playoffs. So it's Aronian Erigaisi, Giri versus Artemyev, Dingley Ren, Jan Krzysztof Duda, Carlsen versus So. We've seen that like 3 or 4 times, and now they play in the quarterfinals. Now, Firouzja, tied with the other 8 pointers, but the first tiebreak is your head-to-head encounter, and he only got half out of 3. He drew against Erigaisi, but he lost to Giri and Duda, and because of that tiebreak, he actually is knocked out. But look at the second tiebreak. 6 wins! Look at Erigaisi's second tiebreak. 3 wins! If Ali Reza had even flipped one of those results against Duda or Giri, he would be in, and he has a dominance. The problem with Ali Reza, he didn't beat these guys. He beat other players, but he didn't beat these players. And even though he won a lot of games, he also lost a lot of games, and unfortunately, he lost to both Giri and Duda. And because of that, even though he stormed a massive comeback, he was unable to make it. And on that note, folks, we conclude the preliminary stage of the Goldmoney Rapid. I told you it was going to be an exciting finish. I hope you enjoyed this recap very much, and tomorrow I will see you for the quarterfinals. Peace out. Get out of here.